Welcome to the TroutCast, the only podcast that isn't about fishing.
Hello, welcome to episode number 7 of the TroutCast, the only podcast that isn't about fishing. I'm your captain, Kelgore Trout, and today we have our most special guest yet, Sam from the YouTube channel We're in Hell. How's it going?
Hey, what's up? I'm doing pretty good.
We weren't just talking for like 5 minutes.
yeah. No,
How are you?
things are good. My friend just got back into town, and so I went on a walk with her. That was really nice, and
Awesome.
Got a slice of pizza, and my roommate and I made ice cream today. So that's pretty sick.
What kind?
So we got an ice cream maker, and so we did. It's this is our first recipe. We made this whole Google Doc of wild shit. This one is, I think it's pretty simple, but it's a good idea. It's vanilla ice cream is the base, and then we mixed in, those ginger snaps you get at IKEA.
Like the cookies?
Yeah. So it's like those, and then some jam that my roommate made.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cold Stone on our asses.
I mean, if you want, I can pull up this list of recipes. Some of them I'm very excited for. These are some wild names. We've got coconut cardamom, Earl Grey with lemon curd swirl,
Ooh,
graham
that sounds
cracker
good.
milk, tahini
Graham
and
cracker
olive oil.
milk? I'm sorry, you can milk a graham cracker?
No, well, it's did you ever Milk Bar, that restaurant, they have a thing where it's cereal milk, where they you soak milk in cereal and milk and then use that milk to make other stuff. And so we were thinking of doing that with graham crackers and turning that into ice cream.
Nice. So it's just graham cracker pulp, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
This one's awesome. Vietnamese coffee.
Ooh.
Chili chocolate.
That would make great ice cream. I love coffee ice cream. I remember being a kid and I'd get a scoop of coffee ice cream. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like this stuff forever.
Okay, I mean, you might. I won't go through the whole list, but this was a joke one, but I think will actually be really good. Is coffee and cigarettes.
Oh God, what are you gonna put in it?
Coffee ice cream with liquid smoke.
Oh, liquid smoke. Okay,
I feel that would actually be really good.
Yeah, I didn't know if you literally were gonna Cold Stone some cigarettes into there. Okay, so you have a YouTube channel called We're in Hell, and you also Twitch, and it's The Goat and the Goblin, you said, right?
Mm-hmm. The Goat and the Goblin.
Linked below.
Twitch.tv/The Goat and the Goblin, streaming 8:30 EST, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Bam!
Nice. Got it. You got it down. How would you describe your YouTube channel? I mean, yourself. How would you describe it?
I don't know.
I could describe it, but I don't know.
I'm bad at describing it, other than just comparing it to other people. You know what I mean?
That's fine.
My comparing it to other, I guess I sort of do a sociology deep dive into sort of weirder topics. Cover a lot of trashy reality shows, or just weird freaks. But I generally describe my stuff as imagine if Abby from Philosophy Tube studied sociology instead of philosophy, wasn't as talented, and was a 6.
Okay, that's fair. I really love your channel. I just actually rewatched the one about the Protestant work ethic. And that one's so good.
Thank you.
Because I could go on and on about I don't know, religion and American culture and everything, but that was so well done in a way that I couldn't imagine. I mean, maybe you disagree, but I couldn't imagine too many religious people being up in arms about that, because you weren't necessarily like you weren't directly critiquing religion in a way that like is a little bit tired. A lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
But you were just talking about how it's like directly impacted how we view like money and work. And it's a really good video. So go watch it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I definitely have gotten some like Protestants who've been like,
yeah,
you don't
sure.
even, from anyone who's studied Protestantism, it's totally, it's like,
yeah,
this is,
you're like,
I don't know, it's a pretty old like sociology theory that's like pretty well established. I don't think I was like too mean or anything,
or like controversial even.
Yeah.
It's just like directly true.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, at this point, probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I made a video about the restaurant industry. Mm-hmm. Sorry, my neighbor's being really loud. He's playing with the hose or something. I don't know. And basically, we seem to be in this mysterious crisis right now where nobody wants to return to their restaurant jobs.
I heard there's something going around.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll look into that. See if I heard of it. Now, after uploading that, I happened to see an amazing video you made, which is like stealthily called "Why Are Cooking Shows?" because you kind of wrap up this like restaurant industry message in a very funny look at a very funny, like I guess you call it like a cooking reality show called Cook Your Ass Off or something. Yeah. And I was like listening to that while I was driving and I was like, oh God, I love this shit. And I thought it was over. And then you're like, that was the introduction to my video. And I was like, oh, let's go. And so basically you're talking about how, I don't know, just like you talk about a lot of stuff, which we'll get into that in a minute, but it was cool to see like another restaurant employee turned lefty YouTuber talk about these things because I just like hearing people talk about it.
Totally.
You brought up some really good points in that video. And I was like, yeah, I just want to have you on the podcast. And here we are. So
thank you. No, that is definitely the video I'm like, I think the most proud of maybe.
Oh,
it's just like, like I've been wanting to make that for like when I like first started my channel. Like I had the idea to make it. I'm like kind of glad I've like waited long enough to like have the audience and like the skills to be able to pull it off in a way that I think I worked really well. But like the videos, as you were saying, like I talk about this like hilariously bad show called Cook Your Ass Off, which like I love like horrible cooking reality shows. But like in the before times, that was a kind of that was a move I would do on dates, was like invite girls back to my place to like watch barbecue pit masters.
Hell yeah.
But no, it's I go from there to like talking about like the history of cooking shows, which I found fascinating. Like I found like a couple like really cool, really weird, interesting articles about it, and then like I don't know, going into like what it's like working in a kitchen and stuff, and it is a very weird culture. I was I was a manager at this like horrible vegan restaurant until the pandemic. They I just stepped down from being a manager. They laid everyone off over Instagram, and so I thought I would respond on Instagram, which they saw, and then they hired back everyone except for me. But I still get like, so like I'm pretty glad I'm out of there. Like I was like, like giving myself carpal tunnel and everything, but like I still get so nostalgic sometimes.
Yeah. So you're in Canada, right?
Yes.
Now I'm sure there have got to be like some differences, but for the most part, I'm sure we have had a pretty similar experience in the restaurant industry. I'm in the States, you're in Canada, can't be that different. I don't know. Maybe healthcare, but I can't really think of much else. I'm sure it's a similar culture is my point.
Oh yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned this a couple times in a couple of your videos, how do you feel about like a hospitality or restaurant union?
100% for that.
Yeah. I'm for it.
I've bothered the IWW a bunch of times by like hitting them up to be like, I think I can unionize this place, and then like do the same meeting where they sort of give you like some general tips, and then
have you ever gotten very far?
No, so
No.
like I mean the thing is that's like when you're in one of those situations where it's like I think the term is hot shop when it's like people are like down and like interested in like organizing and stuff. Those are generally situations where it's like you're probably not staying at that job very long. Either like you're quitting soon or you're going to be fired soon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there have been a handful of places in the past couple of years in San Francisco where I live where like bakeries or restaurants have tried to unionize and like they're gone. They're gone. Like all of them, they just are like, cool, we're closing. Like
Yeah.
they'd rather
No.
just like, commit unalive to their little restaurant than ever get close to having a union.
Well,
It's just like,
have you ever heard of Foodora?
no, what is that?
So it's a food delivery company that like it's like you know like Uber Eats type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where they like operate entirely. I believe it was in like Toronto and Montreal, and some of I believe they must have had some place in the States too. But they I had some friends who were very much involved in trying to unionize it, and they got like very far, like to the point where they were like, you know, like ready to have a vote and everything, and you know, they're doing all.
Was it a gig job before they did this? Like, was it the
kind
gig
of
type thing? Okay.
It's like it's the type of thing where it's like you aren't like full on independent contractor, but it is essentially the same. Like it's like incredibly loose. Like actually, they might be independent contractors. I'm not sure, but it was like it's the type of thing where like I know because I did like Uber Eats a little bit, and like it was sort of similar, but they were just like it's not quite as loose. You do have to like ahead of time say this is my schedule, put me in, but it is they are under. I guess it is independent contractors because they're under no obligation to provide you with like shifts and stuff. It's just you be available and then
interesting.
And so yeah, it's one of those jobs. And then they got like very close. The company was like sending out like anti-union propaganda on the app, of course.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And then because they like the votes, I think the vote succeeded, and then the company closed all their Canadian offices. Just pulled out of the country because they're like, we're not.
Yeah, it's like they just don't even want to. And then I think like especially if it's like your favorite restaurant or this company or something you use all the time, then you're like, damn, the like union killed it, and you're like, no.
Yeah, well, it
didn't.
Their business model is incompatible with treating workers properly,
right? In the States, the only restaurant workers really that I know that are unionized are if they work in a hotel, because there's like a hotel union. But also once in a while there's like an old restaurant that like unionized decades ago, right? Like super, like there's a couple of them in San Francisco that are like 100 years old, and they have like, they keep like the same people have worked there for like 30-40 years, because they're like, hell yeah, I'm keeping this job.
Yeah, of course.
I talked a little bit in my video about like the negative perception of the restaurant industry as a career or not a career. Like people don't think of it as a career. They think of it as like, oh, you're going to get a real job soon. You're just working in a restaurant. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
And, but do you think if hospitality was unionized, do you think that like the industry itself would be more like legitimized in people's eyes?
I could see that. Cool. Cause like, I feel like it is like one of the things I didn't really talk about this in my video, but I feel like this is like an interesting aspect of it is like I feel like people often talk about the like the like quote unquote like reverse sexism of like servers like and like servers, which is like more like predominantly like female side of like the restaurant industry make more money than like the cooks. But like one of the things that's sort of interesting is that cooks have much more upward mobility. Like if you're like the type of person who's going to move on to open their own restaurant is probably a chef, not like a server. And I don't know, like I feel like there has been this sort of like shift in like cultural consciousness to like restaurateur as like a very legitimate career path, but like it's like the restaurant workers that aren't. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like if it was like unionized and like more legitimate, I feel like that would probably legitimize it more. But I feel like a lot of it also has to come to like better conditions for people, because like for me, I would say like a lot of why I think it's very often like this is a do this until you get a real job is because anyone who's like a lifer in the restaurant industry that's brutal. Like you're like destroying your like back of house side, it's like you're destroying your body. Like everyone's getting like carpal tunnel and shit, and like it's like because it is just such a punishing, difficult job in so many ways because of like I would say largely because of just the lack of standards in terms of how people are treated.
Yeah, I agree. Physically, it's like so taxing. And a lot of people, I think once they get past maybe 40 or 45, like they really have a hard time doing it. Although obviously there are people older than that keep doing it. So you said something in your video about, you basically said restaurant owners need to have more people on per shift. They need to pay more people in an individual shift. And I think that's so true. And it contributes to the conditions in such a huge way, because especially in kitchens, it can be front of house too, I guess. It's not a bad job in theory, but owners are so cheap and they always want this like bare bones crew working, right, to do all of the prep and all of the cleaning and all of the cooking. And basically cleaning is what goes by the wayside, in my opinion, in my experience. That like almost every kitchen I've worked in, like you tell the line cooks they have to do 50 things and then clean and then they can go home. They're going to do those 50 things, but they're probably not going to end up cleaning that well because there's just not enough time and there's not enough bodies to do it. And so what happens is that you get pretty gross conditions. And I don't think people realize like how gross a lot of restaurants are, and that overworking the kitchen employees is the root cause of that. And that it affects everybody, the employees, the customers, before it impacts profits.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid. I don't know why they don't just have more people working. Obviously it's because they're cheap, but
well, yeah, I mean, like, terrible. So at the place I was working, like I was a manager there. I was like, which I don't know. I know that's shitty. There are obviously a lot of shitty managers. I see people talk about this a lot. Like I will say, I've definitely been lucky in like some of the restaurants I've worked in. Like I generally work at like places where it's like everyone's like, oh, like cool queer artist or something, and so like that's like been like kind of lucky and had like better experiences. I've like learned to cook from like cool ass lesbian women who are like graphic designers and who run their kitchens like it's the Navy. It's like I feel like that's like a very specific type. I don't know how like relatable that is. But
yeah, like, no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
knife tattoo on their arm and like a bunch of enamel pins.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Just having more workers.
Yeah. So like, I was just gonna say, I was a manager, and I would generally say like, and a lot of like the management like jobs I've had, it's like, like the people at the top are the ones who, like before the owner. While there are absolutely a lot of really shitty managers, and I've been lucky there, I would say that like a lot of times, like I know times when it's been like, that person has the worst job here. It's just that like they just are the ones who have to tell you the owner's demands. And so that's why it's, but anyway, I was just going to like the place I was working at, like we had like an app where we could like look at all the statistics, and the whole thing was we had to keep labor under, I think it had to be definitely under 30%. I think it had to be like under like 25% of profit of like income for the like,
for all the revenue.
Like, and it would be absolutely brutal because it would just be like, this time it was like especially bad because it was run by an algorithm. And so the algorithm would be like, based on your statistics.
Oh, I hate that.
This tells me how much it costs to like how many people are going to come in, and how many, based on like how many people are going to come in, here's how many people you'll need. And the thing is, when it would like short staff us, what would happen is that we would wind up having to like slow down service to the point where people would leave. We'd be turning away customers because we couldn't like get out plates fast enough. And then that would say, oh, so there's even fewer people coming in, so you need even fewer people working. And then it would just be this vicious cycle where it would just get perpetually worse. And like,
oh my God.
I don't know. I feel like that's been like that's sort of characterized a lot of like how things have been getting so much worse, is that like capitalism has just become like so automated that it's not even like the ideal countermeasure to just like short-term profits above all else is like a person being like, no, we can actually like make a bit more money or whatever, like for the logic of capitalism, like we can make a bit more money if we put off our like immediate profits. But now that it's just algorithms doing it, it's like, no, we're just doing that. Yeah.
We're in hell. Okay.
Yeah.
The titular line, there it is. Something you said that really resonated with me was, it was basically like glamorizing your own exploitation. Like, oh, I worked 18 hours today, or like, yeah, I worked when I was sick, and oh, I have all these like cuts and burns on my arms because I'm like this chef, right? And it's like, I totally know exactly what you're talking about. Like, and basically,
what's the most fucked up you've ever worked?
Me?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean like fucked up on alcohol,
or no, like in like sick or injured or something like that?
Oh, it's funny because you said something in your video about how you got the flu in November 2019, and in November 2019, I'm not saying it was COVID because I'm like, whatever, I'm not trying to do that, but like I was so sick, and it was like very similar to the COVID symptoms. I was sick for like 60 days, and I'm a mom, and at that time I actually was working like 2 jobs. And I quit one of them like during the holidays basically, but I was so sick, and I took so much fucking cough syrup and like cough medicine during that time. I was just like, I was like going crazy, and just so I could keep working and stuff. And it was just really stupid in hindsight, because it's like we went a couple months later, we're like looking at a pandemic, we're like, no one's allowed to work, let alone sick people. And it was like a really weird juxtaposition, I guess, of like the expectation of restaurant employees absolutely to work sick to now where that would be like very frowned upon. I hope. I don't know. Probably not though. I mean, I don't believe that will have any lasting, like, staying power or anything.
No.
But so you said this, a lot of it came from Anthony Bourdain and his sort of addition to cooking culture. And he said something about how like Ecuadorians, for example, will work so much harder. They're like much harder workers than these like white boy punks, right? It's kind of like what the quote was. Yeah. And sorry, I should have just written down the quote. I'm so dumb.
There's things like CIA educated white boys, which is a funny one. I was pretty hard on Anthony Bourdain. I should say, like, I didn't quite clarify it in the video. I also didn't quite know this, but like he very much like was himself very critical of his first book. Like, I feel like the point was not so much to be like, fuck Anthony Bourdain, so much as
no,
this is
but
so
it was
emblematic of kitchen culture.
Yeah, and it really is. Like, whether he said it or not, I think it's definitely a thing. But basically, it kind of came off like, hey, you can work these immigrants way harder than you can work white boys, right? As he called them, as if that was like a good thing. Like the way that he framed it was like very like positive, and I've definitely heard that sentiment before, that like they're such hard workers, and like, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, but like, first of all, it's just not really necessarily always true, but also it kind of borders on like eugenics in a way. Like it's a weird thing to say. It's like we've all kind of heard about, like, in the medical industry, doctors saying things about like, oh, like Black women have thicker skin and they don't need as much pain relief or something. And you're like, whoa, like that is literally not true. You are a doctor, right? Like, why would you say or think something like that? But it's been shown that like a lot of them have these preconceived notions about people of other races being able to take more and work harder. And it's really weird. But I also think that like that cowboy culture thing that you talked about rubs off in the worst way of like it turns into a pissing contest of who can work harder, who can work faster, who can work under the worst conditions. And it's terrible. Yeah. I don't know why kitchens have like, I mean, you talk about it and you kind of explain why, but like they've like devolved into this like self-exploitation basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, cause like one of the papers I talked about in the video, like makes this argument that like that sort of comes from this, like cooking to be like taken away from like the feminine sphere and like
to
professionalized, need to be
masculinize
like
it,
super aggressive and like manly and like
because
but
it was
yeah,
like a woman's job
mhm,
or something, or like French guys or something, and they wanted to make it seem like
mhm.
this
American
like
and manly, which means working
sleeve
yourself to death.
tattoos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that another part of that is that toxicity of like self-exploitation and working really hard rubs off even more on female chefs, because they have to like not only prove themselves amongst everybody else, but as a woman in the kitchen. And like, I mean, like you said, like I've known some female chefs that like you can definitely tell that it it impacts them, like having to prove themselves to everybody all the time, and it kind of sucks.
No, for sure. I mean, I've definitely like the last time I was in like a very like full on that kind of toxic relationship, I think I was like 16 and like it was like a dishwasher. Like again, I don't know. I haven't experienced that as much just because like been lucky to work in like a lot of places where like the last like restaurant I worked at, it was like horrible, but it was like I like in the kitchen I was like it's I think the first time I've ever had where like I was like completely in the minority in the kitchen of being like a cis het guy.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like so like luckily that wasn't so much the case, but like I absolutely know what you're talking about. Like, it is absolutely a thing.
Yeah, one of the only places I've ever worked that wasn't, I mean, I won't say that the kitchen wasn't being exploited, because that's not true, but where they seemed to staff enough people where it wasn't the worst fucking conditions. It was like a really kind of like bigger corporate place, and I think maybe because they had really, really high like safety, like cleaning standards and stuff, like crazy. It was insane how much they had to clean. But it was like the only clean restaurant I've ever worked in.
Really, yeah.
By a long shot. Yeah. It's terrible. But I think in other industries too, there's that culture of like, oh, I worked the hardest. I was at the office the latest, like that whole culture. And like, to anyone listening, I implore you to just stop. Knock that shit off. Like, work your 8 hours, especially in the kitchen, work your 8 hours. And if they ask you to keep working past that, tell them to fucking hire more people. Because it's just not worth it at the end of the day. I mean,
no, it's horrible. It's just like, I mean, like I don't think it is like, yeah, like you're saying, like it's not only in kitchens, but I think that there is, I don't know, what do you think it is that like makes it different in like kitchens, like where like from what I've never worked in an office, from what I understand though, it's like you're the asshole if you like show up and sick and you get other people sick, whereas in the kitchens you're a fucking hero. Like I remember like in
if you don't show up for your shift because you're sick, everyone's just like, they're hungover.
Yeah. Or I mean, but like I even remember like there was someone who like showed up like in like March 2020 with flu symptoms, and everyone was like, fucking Lauren, she's the best, she saved our asses here. Like what a champion.
I don't know where that comes from necessarily, but I think it must come from a place like a lack of self-respect at a certain point, because I think even in other industries people are like, oh, this is my job, but like, you know, we're a team and we all work in this office together and I don't want to be getting you guys sick. But in like a kitchen, everyone, or like in a restaurant even, everyone has to like prove themselves every shift. And if they don't show up, then they're not a hard worker. And if they, you know, stay home because they're sick, then they're lazy. And it's not a career. It's just a job you have over the summer. And it's like at a certain point, maybe it's just that like a lack, like I said, like a lack of self-respect or something for
I think that could be it. I feel like there's also just like the technical aspect. Like, I don't know what it's like in like an office of like, I imagine it's not the end of the world if someone has to stay home for a day. Whereas like in a kitchen, if you're down a set of hands, that's massive. Like,
yeah, it's so funny. People who work in offices, even if they feel like their job is hard or that they do a lot of work, so many people who work in offices tell me, they're like, there's so much like pretending you're working, because even if you work hard for hours, a lot of times it doesn't work out to exactly 8 hours a day, or you're waiting for someone else to do something before you can continue your work, to, you know, to email you or to send you something. And I think it must be that like there's some leeway there in an office, like where you can catch up, but like there's no catching up in a restaurant. It's just here and now, right? The work is right now. It can't be put off at all. Absolutely, they're here. Yeah. They're sitting at the table. You have 8 minutes to get them their food. And we have no respect for these people doing it, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really appreciate your insight on the restaurant industry, just because I think you seem to have a healthy approach to it, whereas a lot of people are kind of fooling themselves, I think, into what exactly their job is and how it defines them.
I mean, I also haven't worked in had a real job since March 2020. I mean, that is probably
okay.
the biggest difference in Canada versus US is that we got $2,000 a month for most of 2020. But yeah.
Seems pretty cool. Anyways, I think our 30 minutes is pretty much up. But before we go, can you give our listeners a little bit of motivation or advice? You have 10 seconds.
Wait, what?
You have 10 seconds.
I don't.
Motivational quote. Let's go.
What? I was not told about this. This is an ambush interview. This is so. I did not think that this was going to be one of these slimy shows. You're going to put me on blast like this. Yeah, I don't know.
No motivation. We're in hell.
I have no motivation. I'm constantly stressed and Do
you consider yourself a nihilist?
No, I'm not. Okay, here's my motivation is that I don't. My one thing about the whole nihilist the world is getting worse shit is that the only I know people would be the left has no future or something like that, and the only way that is 100% true is if we believe it.
Yeah, that's true.
It might be true, but even if we don't believe it and don't buy into that, but if we do buy into it, then it is 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. So it's nihilism plus, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me all about the restaurant industry. And be sure to go watch that video.
Comment,
like I said,
subscribe, hit the bell.
Hit the friggin' bell. Actually,
goddamn bell.
I never tell people to hit the bell because I don't hit the bell. Yeah. But maybe I'm making hit his bell.
Yeah.
Go over. We're in hell. Hit the bell. That's how you remember it.
Yeah.
Then we'll go to Taco Bell. Wait, I can't rhyme bell with bell. Hold on. No. We'll finish this rap later.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much. Have a great one. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
All right, later.